What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Jacked Ramsays. It is Tuesday afternoon at 5:38, 17:38, whatever you want to go with. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening live, watching live here on YouTube, hearing the podcast a little bit later tonight, or in the morning and you drive in, or it's your work from home, wherever it is. Appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. Do all the things that we normally do. This has been one of the crazier 24 hours I think I've ever been a part of in sports media. Not only with the earth-shaking lottery results last night, which we'll talk about here a little bit, but as it pertains to the local club and the Portland Trailblazers. I received an email this morning right as it went out, as Shams Charania also broke the news that the estate of Paul G. Allen has announced that it has commenced a formal sales process for the Portland Trailblazers NBA franchise consistent with Allen's directive to eventually sell his sports holdings and direct all estate proceeds to philanthropy. The estate has selected investment bank Allen & Company and law firm Hogan Lovells, to lead the sales process, which is estimated to continue into the 2025-26 basketball season. The NBA Board of Governors must then ratify a final purchase agreement. And with a little side note, this news does not affect the Seattle Seahawks NFL franchise or the estate's 25% interest in the Seattle Sounders MLS, and neither is for sale. That's a bit of a banger, right? Immediately, what that means is the process has begun. A company is going to handle what appears to be a auction process for the Portland Trailblazers. That is Allen & Company. I mentioned this on the radio if you did not hear it then. They do not, just because the names are similar, they do not have ties to the Allen estate, Paul Allen, Jody Allen, Vulcan, anything along those lines. They are a company that, they are a bank. I did a little bit of research on them. I believe they were founded in like 1926, if I'm remembering right, off the top of my head. They have conducted mega sales in the past. I think they were responsible for helping Columbia Pictures sell off, as well as numerous other entities. But that is the establishment that they have chosen to handle the process. It's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. And I know so many people are singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead" and da 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 da. And it's just like, man. I am not here to sing the praises of Jody Allen or the Allen estate or Burt Cold or anything along those lines, but this is going to get crazy. New ownership does not mean better ownership. And I know everybody wants to strike the boogeyman as the Allen estate and da-da-da-da-da, and it's Neil O'Shea or it's Joe Cronin or it's Chauncey Billups, and it's just like, this is not this magical cure-all. I do want to see the team sold. I've always said that. Having consistency and knowing which way they're going and having this behind them, I think is important. But it turns into the wild, wild west very quickly. The process, timeline, all that stuff is really unknown. Like, who would be interested? And I know everybody's championing Phil Knight, 87-year-old Phil Knight, so we can go do this again in 3 years, because would be fun. Going through a trust of a billionaire yet again. And I'm sure the succession plan would be just so clear and fundamentally sound that it would have no hiccups, no issues, and definitely not leave the Blazers in a place that would be in any way, shape, matter, or form cumbersome to deal with. No. There's no way that could possibly happen. And while I do think that it obviously is necessary, and I am excited about the process, there is a feeling in the pit of my stomach that someone is going to come in and buy this team and do it their way and spend all the money and exhaust every asset and drive this thing into the ground for a decade, as most new owners do. That scares the living crap out of me. I just want to get that out of the way right out of the gate. It's just kind of the mark of billionaires. They got that way from being incredibly successful and doing things their way, and them not deferring and charging head first and I mean, I don't think it goes without saying, I don't think there's a good billionaire in a sense. This isn't like some political or class warfare or anything along those lines. It's just if you open the closet of every single one of them, it's not good. You're going to find something you don't like, because in order to amass that much wealth, you probably have to do some things that I think most people kind of look at and go, damn. But that's kind of what sets them apart. That's, I mean, don't be wrong. You know, some people stumble into it, whether it be family or fortuitous luck. But yeah, it's very interesting to where this thing is going to go. I solicited the ask for questions, and we'll dive into those. We talked about it today on the radio for half the show. I think we spent about an hour and a half of the 3 hours diving into all of that. It's very, very, very interesting. I want to work through the kind of timeline, the basketball stuff. We'll talk about some draft, NBA lottery stuff a little bit later, but let's kind of talk about the immediacy. The Portland Trailblazers agreed to a bridge lease deal with the city of Portland, in which the arena was given to the city of Portland, and basically, if I'm remembering right, if the team were to up and move, or they went somewhere else, or the scariest proposition part of this, which I do not believe is on the table in any way, shape, matter, or form. Some people have tried to walk me off that ledge of don't say never, but it's so hard for me to even fathom. Maybe it's my lack of imagination and how screwed up some people might be in order to be like, this perfectly good thing here that's doing well, let's go ahead and put it somewhere else. Maybe it's just me. But you've got Moda Center that's under renovations. It's one of the older arenas. I believe it was, when we looked at it today, it's the 7th oldest arena in the NBA currently. They're doing renovations. They're trying to have it ready for 2030 for the Women's Final Four. Dwayne Hankins has made no secret that he's been pushing for an all-star game, getting the hotels built around. You've got the Albina Trust, which I believe has invested $1.4 billion, if I remember right. The Albina Trust, which is, I believe, partially funded by or entirely funded by. God, there's so much running through my head right now. I should be better prepared. I'm sorry. Phil and Penny Knight, and the building back up of the Albina District. All of these things are kind of tied together. Because if you're a prospective owner and you're looking at buying the Portland Trailblazers, what are the things that matter? Well, you're buying an entity, you're not buying. I've already seen people like, they waited until after the lottery because it was bad news to drop this. That shit doesn't matter. Doesn't. In the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. This is a machine that's way too big to care about that stuff one way or the other. The value is in the entity itself. It is in the real estate. It is in the property. It is in something much more holistic than just whether or not they got a player or the ability to draft a player. I've talked to people over the years who are like, yeah, having a guy who generates ticket sales and merchandise and sponsorships is certainly helpful, but in the bottom line of valuation of this stuff, it's unless you're LeBron, Messi, like you are such a seismic force that you are branded unto yourself and you are established, and there's no way that's going anywhere anytime soon. That's kind of when it starts to matter a lot more when you're talking about valuations. At least that's what it's been explained to me by people with a lot more money than me. The timeline for all of this, and this is something I've been following ever since, we knew the team was going to have to be sold and kind of the process of this. A little peek behind the curtain. I had somebody in the league office tell me, I want to say it was 2019, that the hope or the process was that by the end of the 2023 leading into the 24 season was kind of when things would start taking off. I wonder how much COVID had an impact on that, whether or not that was originally the goal, and then COVID and disruption of not just the economy and sports, but the world. I genuinely wonder how much impact that had. I'm sure it had a lot. So that's part one of this. I remember even back then, there's talks of expansion happening sooner. I think, again, COVID played a large part in delaying that, in the economy, the state of everything is in. If you don't want to sell something at the bottom, not knowing where it may go and where it may come back to, or if it'll come back. But you've got that process, right? You've got the TV deal, which now a 9-year TV deal is signed worth billions of dollars. And Adam Silver himself has said now, after not saying anything, that expansion talks are very much on the horizon. And as it pertains to expansion talks, obviously we're talking about Seattle and Las Vegas. Those are the two teams. There's ownership groups that I've heard that are basically in place that are just kind of waiting to be greenlit. I've heard of 2 in Seattle, one of them involving current ownership of the Seattle Kraken, Todd Lewicki and his group. I'm hoping I'm saying his last name right. They have certainly a vested interest because they have a stake in the building at Climate Pledge Arena and a beautiful locker room for their hockey team, and the $1 billion plus renovation they did at Key/Climate Pledge Arena. But you're talking anywhere between $11 and $12 billion in expansion rights fees that will go to the current 30 NBA owners. So, and I skipped over one here. Before expansion, and this was kind of what was, I believe, very strongly was holding up expansion talks, is getting that price for expansion was going to come down to the Celtics sale, which sold for over $6 billion. When you get a $6 billion valuation, it's going to raise the tide of all boats. And so if you go back to 2023, when Phil Knight made a $2 billion offer, you're going to need to double that to get the Trailblazers at this point. You're probably going to need anywhere between $4 and $4.5 billion to buy the Portland Trailblazers. And that $6 billion valuation of the Celtics is a big part of that. And now you get into the politics of everything, and whoever comes in and buys the franchise is going to have, or want to have, a say in what happens with the land and what happens with the building. Because when you buy a team now, it's not so much just about buying the team, it's about buying the real estate and what you can do to develop it. And Portland has definitely been the city of Portland, and as it pertains to sports entities, properties, and everything else like that. And I'm not speaking for the Blazers here. I'm speaking from my own personal experience and talking to people. Portland's about a pain in the ass. let's just be honest. With trying to figure out what they can do down at Moda in the Rose Quarter, in the complete lack of anything around the arena. And whoever comes in is going to want to do some stuff. I've mentioned before in the past, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, I have said, look, if you want a veteran to go down to the city of Portland and tell them to tear down Veterans Memorial Coliseum, because the memorial there, I bet you most of you in this chat, if you're listening, or if you're watching live on YouTube, if you're listening tomorrow on a podcast, or if you're listening on the radio show, I would venture to guess almost none of you know where the memorial is at Memorial Coliseum. It's down at the bottom of the staircase underneath everything. I'm a big proponent of paying tribute and honor to veterans, those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Nobody knows where that damn thing is. It's a fountain that's never turned on. Tear the building down. Build a proper memorial that is there for everyone to see and to pay respects, and do it the service that it deserves. Use the land. Use the land. Make it a place where the whole city can come together. And it was like, the whole taxpayer. Like, look, man, just figure it out. Just figure it out. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it all, but like the number of businesses that are not in downtown anymore is insane. Everybody who lives down there, it's perfectly fine. No, it's not. Pull your head out of the sand. They need a massive infusion of cash. They need a massive infusion of help in that region, on that side of the river, and it's prime for it. Period, point blank. That's what excites me about new ownership, is that will very, 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 very likely happen. Because somebody is not going to invest $4.5 billion for that without having that green lit. Where does this go now? Okay. Allen and Company, who is going to conduct, from what I understand, an auction. It doesn't necessarily have to go to the highest bidder, because I've heard reports and talking to people as it pertains to the Boston Celtics sale, the group that lost out on the Celtics was indeed willing to spend more and offer up more. But it was down to the discretion of the Grusbeck family and the chairperson, governor there, because all things being equal, X amount of dollars, it was in margins of error. They ended up going with the group that they chose. And the group that ended up losing out, they penned an open letter of like, hey, don't come to us because we were willing to spend, we were willing to go down this path, all those things. So I'm interested to see kind of how that part of it spins out. I am not against Phil Knight as being a part of a group that comes to buy the Blazers. Look, Phil Knight's been incredibly successful. Like, there's a significant amount of USC stuff around this room that'll get transported out to the studio. I don't like the Oregon Ducks. Never have, never will. But he's been pretty successful down there. No, they haven't got a national title, and I'll always let them know. My school has forfeited more than you've won. Deal with it. But I'd love to see him be a part of a group. And that's the thing, is part of a group. There's only so many single entities that can buy a team now. And that's what kind of scares me, because the price is so big and so prohibitive that you do need groups. And with groups come competing interests and infighting. And I mean, you can just look at the Minnesota Timberwolves right now and see what I'm talking about. I would welcome, former players buying, small pieces of the team and all those kind of things that come along with that. But somebody has to have the primary stakeholder, and you have to own 15% of the team in order to be a governor. That's what I'm interested in. Who's going to be the face of all this? There can be somebody with a big old chunk of money that just sits there and treats it as an investment in a sense, but that can't be the person deciding it. And I kind of I put a question out on Twitter earlier today during the show of like, what are you most interested in seeing in the new ownership? And a lot of it was deep pockets. Yeah, you don't look. I'm a Raiders fan too. Mark Davis, he ain't got the cash. That's why he had to sell off bits and pieces of the team. Look at Oklahoma City. As great of a team right now as they are, their owner's worth less than $1 billion. And let's see how great of a team they are when they have to make financial decisions within the limitations of their ownership. That's a real thing. So yes, I definitely want somebody with deep pockets. I want somebody that cares about basketball and cares about sports. I don't want the Adelsons or the Dumonts coming in and having no idea what the fuck Luka Doncic means to a franchise and packing him up in the middle of the night and ripping the soul of a fan base out and the rug out from underneath him, only to be saved by the basketball gods for some cruel reason I heretofore cannot fathom. I don't want that. I don't want somebody who's going to come in and treat this like an investment. Just a market on the box. It's going to print money for us because that's what sports does, because you see a lot of that in baseball. A lot of it in baseball. And you used to see it in the NBA 20 years ago. I think for the most part it is mostly gone out the way. There are a few teams that definitely still treat it like that. See teams that have literally never paid a single cent of luxury tax. But I want somebody who gives a shit. Like, I've been doing this for 15 years now in some form or facet in the media, and I've made it my career for almost 10 now. And as much as I try to be objective and give unbiased takes, I can't not have some bias because, and we talked about this during the lottery last night with Gunderson and I, and I want the team to be good. It's selfishly, it is better for business when the team is good. I have no problem calling out things that I don't like. I've done it my whole life. But when I look at this, I'm a little leery of everybody's like, oh, I want Matt Ishbia. I don't want Matt Ishbia to come in and buy this team. I don't want that type of person to go, come in and go, we're going to push it all to 11. Spinal Tap. Go see it. And then have an organization that's stuck for a decade because you have maxed out your credit cards to the point of no return and you have to basically declare team bankruptcy. That's a particular hellscape I don't want to be a part of. And you want to thread the needle, and I think I landed on, you want a Ryan Smith. That's the owner of the Utah Jazz, who's responsible for bringing hockey to Utah as well. You want a guy with a shit ton of money. You want a guy who cares, and you want a guy who's, or gal, again, I'm just using guys, whatever. You want a guy who gets the hell out of the way when it comes to basketball decisions. And not totally defers and says, you just run things. It's their money. They're going to have a say. I get that. I'm okay with it. But I don't want somebody slamming the table of just get this done. Because that doesn't work for anyone. The Warriors smoked their own dope for too long. Light years. You fell ass backwards into Steph Curry. That's what you did. Congratulations. You fell ass backwards into Draymond Green. Congratulations. How about James Wiseman? How about Jonathan Kuminga? How about basically every draft pick you have made post Harrison Barnes? Light years? No. You're in one of the biggest marketplaces with some more money than God. And you got lucky. So I look at this stuff, and asking for everything that I'm asking for here is a major ask. It really is. It is, and I understand that. But the thing that I like about Smith, the worst thing I've heard about him, I have to not share this, but screw it. That neon highlighter yellow. I had somebody tell me that the reason that color became prominent is because Ryan Smith wanted a polo, like a black polo that looked good. Wanted a black polo look good, so they got that neon highlighter yellow because the white's just plain and the purple didn't show. But he liked his black polos. And I'm like, if that's the worst thing you're going to say about a guy as far as like getting involved of like the team stuff, I can deal with that. I can deal with having a whack-ass random color being thrown in a jersey rotation if you're going to do right. And you're going to give a shit about your fans. And you're going to care about the team. And you're going to have all the money. And you're going to spend. And you're going to do the things that are necessary to keep an organization going forward. I mean, you want somebody probably, insanely, relatively close to my age. I'm 40. You probably want somebody 45 to 55 who hopefully isn't going to have anything unfortunate happen to them. They're going to be in good shape. And you get 30 plus years out of them really giving a damn like Paul Allen did. Honestly, if you brought Paul Allen, if you had the same version of him, somebody who gave a shit like he did even when he over-medaled, good with that. I'm good with that. It's a good place to be. So that's where that stands as of now. I've had a bunch of people ask me, who's interested, look. There's a short list of the uber rich. And I've seen people say Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, went to Aloha High School, went to Oregon State and Stanford. The next time he spends money on sports will be the first time. I think he's given like $250 million to Oregon State, but it's all for education, which good, great, awesome. Keep doing that, Jensen. I'm not criticizing you. That's not your bag. That's totally fine. Obviously Phil Knight, but I don't want him as the guy with the most money and everything else because he's 87 years old. I've heard Jeff Bezos' name talked about as wanting to buy teams. I heard him when it came to the Boston Celtics. I heard about him with the Washington Commanders. I've heard names that have popped up in Seattle. I wonder if there are indeed two groups there that are competing that are that close. Is the second group go, hey, look, Portland's right down there, and we can get a team where it's $4 billion instead of $6 billion. And the thing about that is you're paying $6 billion in expansion rights for, Seattle or Las Vegas. That's just the price out the door. Everything else you got to do. And in Seattle, you're starting from scratch. You have a building, but you're paying $2 billion in premium for being able to lick your thumb and put your own impression on it. Portland, names there, wordmark, jersey, history, all those kind of things. And the Sonics will probably do the same. Whereas Las Vegas, you're starting from scratch. It's going to be really interesting. I've heard Keith Ellison's name from Oracle come up. I mean, again, Google world's richest people, and that's where you kind of start the list if you're talking about single ownership. There's only 2 Fortune 500 companies in Oregon, Nike and Intel, unless something has changed. Well, I guess NVIDIA's founded. I think they're actually founded in California, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that. But there's a shortage of the uber rich in Oregon. So you're probably going to have to, number one, open up yourself to out of state. And then do you open yourself up to out of region? The league has played with the idea of international money more than a few times. Now, they haven't gone down that path yet. But all of a sudden, Middle Eastern oil money started working its way in a professional sports league. Wouldn't surprise me. It's the nature of that beast when you're talking about that much money, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. As far as timeline, I'm entirely spitballing here. If you're starting this process now, you probably go through the vetting process, which I would imagine is probably 6 months. You get down that road. You whittle it down to 3, 4 groups, 5 groups that can make potential bids. And then it goes to auction month 9 through 12, somewhere around those lines. And I don't think they're going to get out there with a gavel. Can I get a $1 billion? Can I get a $6 billion? I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that's how that process goes. I'm not privy to that because I don't have that kind of money. I can afford my car, my house, and my very beautiful but expensive wife money. That's the money I have, right? I can take a nice trip every couple of years, all right? So I'm guessing and I'm going off of what people have told me. Granted, there are people that are in those kind of rooms. But yeah, that's where we sit on the ownership stuff. It's a big deal. This is the second time the team has ever been for sale. In its 55 years of existence, this is the second time the team has been for sale. And it's at an interesting crossroads. I think the team is in a good spot going forward. Their books look good. Their roster's in a good position. Their bad money is incredibly limited. And I think that's where we should transition here, is talking about the basketball side of things. What does this mean for the basketball side of things for the Portland Trailblazers? Does this mean that they close up shop? No, it doesn't. After the lottery last night, you now know, excuse me, I have to pull back up my multi-year sheet again. After the lottery last night, obviously the Portland Trailblazers are now picking, excuse me, 11th in the NBA draft. Okay. I believe the Portland Trailblazers have been operating under the understanding or the belief that they were going to be picking around that regardless for a couple months, to be honest. Now, you always hope and pray for that you move up because getting Cooper Flagg certainly helps on the basketball front. But I believe that they've been operating under that auspices and they have been conducting business that way. Now, what does that mean? Well, that they're building towards something. Hence the commitment to trying to make the play-in. Or at least not taking the opportunity away from it, as Joe Cronin stated. And as it pertains to Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups, I think there's two schools of thought here. I had somebody replied in the comments when I was talking about this earlier or posting a question. I can't remember what it was, but somebody said, I knew they were selling a team as soon as they gave Chauncey and Joe extensions. That doesn't play well for audio. I'm just giving you the what the are you talking about face. if you're talking about selling a team, you don't typically extend the head coach and the general manager or anyone on the team because you're trying to sell a clean slate. You strip it down. The Boston Celtics are being sold, and through the process, Whit Grusbeck is going to be the governor through 2028, which they are in a very unfortunate circumstance right now with a devastating injury to Jason Tatum that will absolutely change the state of affairs for the Celtics. Look, at least they got that title. But I found it interesting that the Allen estate, Jody Allen, Burke Cole, decided to extend Joe and Chauncey. I think they did that because they believed that they were doing the right thing. Because if they're a team that, if you're looking at Jody Allen and Burke Cole and talking about the basketball side of things, why would you extend those guys if you're selling the team? Well, you believe they're doing a good job. Because otherwise, if you know that, because they didn't just wake up this morning and go, fuck it, we're selling the team. That's not what happened. You don't just wake up and decide, I'm going to sell a multi-billion-dollar entity. It's been a process for this. So they're building that into it. Because I think they believe that they're doing a good job. But I found it interesting because they could have just said, we'll just get some caretaker in here to come in here on incredibly cheap deals, and whoever comes in and buys the team, they can do whatever they want. Now, the ownership can come in and buy those guys out and fire them if all they want, or they can keep them online. But that's just another cost that you're building in there that would be kind of weird otherwise. So, But you take a look at the basketball side of things. If you look at the Portland Trailblazers books, and I've been watching this for 18 months, maybe a little bit longer, just eyeing what was coming down the road. One, because I'm a giant nerd. Two, having at least a little bit of runway and understanding the landscape of where things are headed, particularly in a new CBA, and looking at potential openings and windows. In 2026-27, these are the players that are currently under contract for the Portland Trailblazers. Jeremy Grant, Denny Avdia, Toumani Camara. Every other player currently on the roster is either an RFA or a club option or a UFA. Unrestricted free agent, restricted free agent. Those are the only players currently under contract. That is $34 million to Jeremy Grant, $13 million to Denny Avdia, and $2.4 million to Toumani Camara. That is nothing. That is about as flexible a payroll as you could. This is the opposite of the Boston Celtics. And part of me wonders if this was always part of the process, is that you were trying to give somebody a clean slate who was going to come in and buy the team, because they're not going to buy the team and take hold probably during the season. Now, if something does happen, somebody says, screw it, I'm going to give you $5 billion right now for the Portland Trailblazers. We're done. Close the shop. Then maybe, yeah. But this gives them a clean slate kind of going forward. Now, this doesn't take into account that Scoot Henderson has a club option, Donovan Clingan has multiple club options, Chris Murray has a club option that they could all opt to take on. But as far as guaranteed money, $50 million. $50 million is all they have on the books. $50 million. It's actually kind of crazy when you think about it. That is so little money on the books. Now, the cap holds in question are bonkers. They have $183 million in cap hold. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, right? But I start wondering, okay? And these are the things that I'm looking at this summer when I'm looking at the team building aspects, the runway for the team going forward. What do the Blazers do with Anthony Simons? What do they do with DeAndre Ayton? What do they do with Matisse Thybulle? What do they do with Scoot Henderson? What do they do with Shaedon Sharpe? What do they do with, who am I forgetting here? Oh, Tumani Kamara. Like, there's a lot of questions there. Do the Blazers give Shaedon Sharpe an extension, or do they make him go to RFA and prove what his worth is? And that's not just true for the Blazers. I'm very interested to see for players that you are not just automatically handing Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Cade Cunningham, guys that are like, yeah, you're certified. You're no doubt. We want to pay you. We want to make you a no bullshit part of the franchise going forward. Like, you are a cornerstone. I don't think you can say that about Shaedon yet. If you can, go ahead. Somebody immediately says you extend Shaedon. Duh. I can tell you right now, I can text 10 different executives in the NBA that would tell you no. Right now. That they would not extend Shaedon Sharpe. So it's not this whole like, oh yeah, no, it's cut and dry. Because it's not a one-way street. Here's Shaedon, here's an extension, sign it. Well, Shaedon's got to want to do that. It's one of the bigger questions that when people from out of town come through Portland through the season, it's one of the questions that I get asked the most, to be honest. Because I've had people say, I wouldn't pay him a penny. I've had people say, if you get him dirt cheap. I had one who's like, yeah, give him 20 and see if he takes it. Nobody was like, oh yeah, it's a no-doubter. There wasn't a single executive that I talked to who was like, oh yeah, no, you just give him 25, 30 million and call it good. That's just not a belief right now. No, that doesn't mean that a year from now that Shaedon's market isn't booming. He's 22 years old. He certainly can figure it out. It's going to be very interesting, okay? Tumani Kamara, we'll find out, I think, next week. I need to double check. I actually need to send a text about that and find out exactly when the all defensive teams come out. What's going on with that? Whether or not Tumani makes that. I mean, that doesn't change how the Blazers feel about Tu. They love Tu. I believe the max they can give him is a 4-year, $90 million extension, if I remember right. Again, I'm just kind of going off my head. My head has been spinning for the last 24 hours. Sorry if that's not exact, but I'm almost certain that's correct. Now, all of a sudden, if you give him that and you extend you extend Shaedon, that's $45 million on the books in that year, and now you've doubled your payroll like that. Do you extend Anthony Simons? Do you extend DeAndre Ayton? Do you trade those guys? Do you trade Matisse Thybulle, who has a player option this year for $11.5 million? Do you keep him on? It's very, very, very interesting now that you know that the sale is out there. What moves do they do or don't do? Do they look to keep the books clear? Do they look to lock guys in at maybe not bargain, but better rates? Talking to players so far this summer, the Brooklyn Nets are the only team with money, and players out there are like, yeah, it's going to be tough to get some money. Might be better to just stay with my team because they got my bird rights and they can go over. And do that. If you talk to basically, excuse me, any 20-point per game scorer in the NBA right now that is either up for contract or is going into a contract year or looking to extend, basically have some kind of trigger that's happening. If you ask them like how much money they want, the number starts with 3 and there's a 0 after it. If you are a 20-point per game starter in the NBA, just get used to seeing $30 million as the baseline. Just like let that kind of sink in. And it's not because, oh my God, this guy's so great. Da, da, da. It's because that's starter level money now with the new TV deal. That's roughly 20%, anywhere between 18 and 20% of the cap, depending on what year it is. And if you look at everybody's deals right now, if like Ant's deals escalates up to in 25, 26 next year, Ant's final year of his deal is $27.7 million. Okay, I'm just going to pull his up now for a point of reference. Ant's salary this year is 18.4% of the total salary cap. If he went up to $32 million, like Emmanuel Quickley money, which is what the one and every player is like, I saw what IQ got. Go ahead and give me that. That's like starter level money now. That's 20%. It's a 1.5% raise when you're talking about like percent of cap, because that's how these deals are going to get done now. It's not the dollar, it's the percentage of cap. Like that's where this stuff is at. And so I'm not just using Ant as this. I'm just like, he's the one who's up right now. Like if DeAndre Ayton decided that he wanted to take an extension to come back to the Blazers at basically half of his deal, I think a lot of teams in the NBA would sign up for that, because starting level big man money ain't cheap. And you're looking around the NBA playoffs right now, you know what's playing a very big factor in the NBA? Bigs. Or the lack thereof. So, there are a lot of, like, yeah, I'm interested in the draft. I love the draft. Draft is one of my favorite things. I've made no secret about it. Like, my favorite thing about basketball is the basketball, but like my little pigeonhole, the corner of the world that I love is watching young players figure it out. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so I'm not starting. I'm knee deep in tape on guys, and now I know where the Blazers are picking and potential machinations and all those things that kind of come with that. Great. Love it. But now I've got an eye on this stuff, because watching out for future moves and for future bosses under, what operational auspices the front office can conduct business, I think is going to be a huge deal. And I do find it interesting that they did publicly announce it so early in the summer, because I wonder how that impacts what moves they do or don't make. And I think it's a fair question. When the person writing the check today is not the person writing the check maybe next year, I think it is a very fair question to ask, what are the motivations that are driving these transactions? And how much leeway and wiggle room you have to conduct business. Because you're not conducting, as much as you were conducting for that business for that person today, you're conducting business for who's coming in. And I think if you would be foolish to think otherwise. So that's where I'm at. I've got to do a TV hit here in a little bit, so I want to make sure I get to your guys' questions before we wrap things up. So thank you for everybody who put in questions. Let me make sure I get my Blue Sky mentions up here too. I don't do as good a job over there. I try to use my little handy-dandy app to cross-pollinate. I just don't spend as much time over there just because I don't have 20,000 followers over here. It's just a lot smaller. But I don't want to discount you guys that are over there, so I'll maybe go ahead and pull that up here real quick. I'll give a quick shout out to Evan. Can you please tell everyone that the Blazers will not be moving regardless of who the new owners may be? Again, I kind of addressed that coming out of the gate. I would be stunned. And again, people have cautioned me against this. Your caution is acknowledged, those of you that are out there. I'm dumb, so I'm going to put my head in the sand and go, it's no way in hell it's happening. I just refuse to believe that people are that stupid, but Lord knows that's bitten me in the ass before, because boy, are people dumb. I'm going to skip, screw it. We haven't talked about NBA draft or lottery, so I'll take those questions now too. Chris asked, do you think the success of two big lineups in the playoffs, the Rockets Knicks, has implications for how the Blazers can use their surplus of bigs to greater advantage? Yes and no. I do think that we're getting back to my style of basketball, bigger, heavier, stronger, being able to leverage this. Look, the whole idea of the beautiful game, playing in space, it's not my jam. I don't want to play games in the 70s. I said this on the radio a couple weeks ago, and it's a belief that I've held for a long time. I think the optimal basketball score is 104 points. You get physicality. Big, strong guys get to be big, strong dudes, while the guys who don't want ever get touched get to play their finesse game to a level 2. But we have legislated physicality out of the game far too much, and the playoffs this year have been physical as hell and has been fantastic. Now, I'm not talking about the injuries and unfortunate things that have happened in non-contact, obviously, with Dame and Tatum and things of that nature, and Steph pulling the hamstring. But being more physical makes the game better, and it allows people that are big and strong as their gifts to be big and strong. And I think that is an instrumental part of the game. And I think the Blazers are a team, the Detroit Pistons are a team, the Knicks are a team that are uniquely positioned going forward. Hell, the Washington Wizards are a team. Being bigger, stronger, longer, I think is going to be the motto of the new CBA. And it's not devaluing shooting, because we're seeing what shooting means, Rockets, means in the playoffs. But that's something I definitely think there are implications and there are markers of success based on being a big-ass team that are certainly hopeful. Fletcher asks, does any trade make sense to you for Portland for the 11th pick? If you had to bet on the next Blazers owner, who would you bet on it being? Not taking those bets right now. There's just too much unknown. Now, over the next couple weeks, next couple months, as I hear more and reach out and kind of hear back, let's see what kind of comes out of that. I think there are a ton of trades that make sense. I think that the entire NBA world got thrown on its ass last night with that absolutely cursed top three. The Mavs, Spurs, and 76ers. I think it definitely changed things as far as where some prospects may end up, what teams may or may not reach on guys. I was talking to an evaluator last night. Screw it. He won't care if I read it because I'm not going to read his name. I thought it was a really poignant thing because I do think that there are... I do believe the Trailblazers are very much motivated to explore a trade at that spot. Yes, they should trade out. They're in a sweet spot. 10 through 15 will be a point guard death row. No team really needs them, so they should ring the dinner bell. It's something I very much believe. And honestly, if they didn't move up in the draft, that's what I thought they would do. I think they're looking at this and going, hey, if we move up, great, awesome. That would be, getting Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper would be fantastic. But you plan for the worst, prepare for the worst, and then hope for the best. I think that's how the best teams do it. And so you go, hey, if we get that, we'll pivot. If not, we'll go down this path of kind of what we discovered with Danny Avdia. I don't think Denny was distressed in any manner. Well, distressed being in Washington, perhaps. But you're trying to identify guys 21 to 23, 20 to 23, that you think very strongly have real juice to unlocking more in their game. And you get them, not necessarily at a discount, but you get them in a contract space that makes more sense for you. And I think that's the kind of thing that they're looking at. So that's at least where I'm at right now. Now, if they keep the pick, Kasparas Giannakis is a guy that I like. Liked him ever since I saw him in Hoop Summit last year. I've changed my draft philosophy a little bit because I was always so embedded in the size and the physical and the tools, where the slider for things that I value has changed over the last couple of years, and IQ, feel, playmaking just matters so much more to me. And I think Kasparas has got that. The turnovers are definitely an earmark of things like, I don't know about that. His inability to leverage the point of attack while being a great pick and roll manipulator and great passer. Like, those are things I'm like, and I think the shooting can be real, even though it's come and gone in his 1 year at Illinois, but he's a guy that I really like. And we'll talk about some more draft prospect stuff. Ty asks, would you consider trading down this draft for 16 and 25 or 15 and 24? No. If they're going to trade the pick, I think it's trading out for something a much more known quantity. And yes, as somebody's asking me if I'm watching the Pacers Cavs game, if you see my eyeballs keep going over to the right side of the screen, I've got it going over there. I'm very much interested in it because I love the Cavs, and if they go out sad, I'm going to be very disappointed because they just got hit with unbelievable injury luck. And Smith asks, we saw Portland trade the late lotto pick last year for Denny. It sounded like Cronin split between drafting 11 and trading the pick. I don't know if he's split. I don't know where you would necessarily get that, but I do think that they're going to explore all avenues. Do you think the Blazers should target a guard or a forward, vet or rookie? I would like a vet like Fox. Is that DeJounte Murray or Kuminga? Look, the Spurs have the ability to do the funniest thing possible. Be like, hey, De'Aaron Fox, thanks for your time. But we're going to go at Dylan Harper. We're going to trade you for something else because we've got a younger point guard who's bigger and we think might end up being better than you and is a lot cheaper. I mean, that would be... I mean, I feel bad for De'Aaron because, you know, you don't want to see a guy be like, hey, I got myself Wemby, and then no, you don't. You're out the door. Murray, DeJounte's a level of crazy. I'm out. And Kuminga, I want nothing to do with. I've made no bones about that. I want nothing to do with Kuminga. 5, 6, 7 years ago, you probably could have talked me into Kuminga pretty easily because that's like the tantalizing physical tools, but his basketball IQ and feel just feel like they don't exist. And I just... Oof, that's tough for me right now. Oracle asks, as of right now, do you think the Blazers will extend or trade Ant this offseason? If they decide to trade Ant this offseason, what type of player do you think they would target in return? An Ant-type player? If they trade Anthony Simons, they have no shooting or singular shot creation in any way, shape, matter, or form. And we're seeing in the playoffs just how valuable that is. Do I think that they would... I think right now, I believe the Blazers would be more likely to extend Anthony than to trade him. That's my gut feeling on it right now. Because they just don't have anybody else like him on the roster, and I've said that for 2 years now. And you're hoping maybe somebody else pops, but as an individual shot creator, no one on the team comes within a sniff of Ant. And everybody's like, oh, you're Ant guy. Shut up. I'm just going to tell you. It's just not close. You can have your thoughts and your opinions. I just don't care. I'll be bluntly honest with you on that. It's just not close. And if they gave him up, they would have to get something back like him. So that's the real crux of the issue. I mean, Chauncey Billups isn't saying Ant sees more different coverages than probably 90% of the league just to blow smoke up Anthony Simons' ass. It's because he does. That's just the reality of it. If you're going to trade him, the reason the Orlando Magic want Anthony Simons is because that isn't on the team and it's not readily available. Like that's it, it's for everybody says, oh, you can go get those guys. Why the hell haven't the Orlando Magic done it? Why do the Houston Rockets not have that? Why is shot making at such a premium? Why did Malik Beasley matter so freaking much for the Detroit Pistons? Like, I know everybody wants to dismiss these things away because it's much more fun to talk about, well, this guy's trash or this guy isn't this. And it's like, shot making is a premium skill, and there's only so many guys in the league who can do it by themselves when put in like that box and who manipulate defenses at a certain level. It's just not normal. It's just not a thing that comes around all that often. Otherwise, teams would have it in spades. So, somebody asked what a trade extension look like for Peyton Pritchard. Well, he just got a new deal, so that's not happening. And right now, the Boston Celtics need all of the money and all the flexibility in the world, and he's on a nice little deal because he's a sixth man and not a starter. Tyler asks, most important quality and new ownership to you? Number one, money. Number two, give a damn. Like it's 1A, 1B. Like, again, as a Raiders fan, I'm always leery of like, broke boy owner, kind of a problem. But I don't really think it's going to be a problem in the NBA because you're not going to have individual owners anymore. So I would put give a damn and motivation. That's probably what I'd go with. Neil points out, OKC, San Antonio, maybe Dallas seem to have juggernauts. What lengths do we need to go to reach that level of contention? Doing unspeakable things that I can't say without violating YouTube's and probably my podcast partners' terms of agreement, because that's the only way any of this makes sense for what they have stumbled ass backwards into, particularly Dallas and San Antonio. Just moving up 3 straight times in the lottery for Wemby, Castle, and Harper is insane. insane. Like, it truly is. Dallas making the most egregious trade in the history of sports, only to be rewarded with Cooper Flag. So I don't know where it came from. Dusty had it this morning or this afternoon on the show. The combination of Dallas 1, San Antonio 2, and Philly 3. The math behind that, the likelihood of that combination coming out in that order is 0.014%. It's cosmically stupid. It's absolutely like the likelihood of those three in that order, 0.01, slightly more than a freaking, oh my God, 1/100%. It's just, it's so impossible to have to deal with that level of, oh my God, that I just don't know what to do with it. I hate it. I hate it that much. I'm going to get a couple more here because we're running up at an hour and I got to pop over and handle some other stuff too. So much of these are the same version of like, what do you want in the shape of an owner? And that's, I think we've kind of covered a lot of that. And then everything else here is trades. It has been less than 24 hours. Or we're at 24, a little over 24 hours since the lottery. And now less than 24 hours since the team went for sale. I've got to make a lot of phone calls and a lot of texts before I can answer anything with any kind of authority at all. So I'm going to have to go down that path for the next couple of days, and then we'll kind of revisit stuff because of the sale and the lottery and everything else that kind of came out with that. The Jacked Ramsays Patreon, I threw up the first lottery mock draft. I'll have a full mock draft. I'll have a full big board. I've got my Denny Avdi article. It's right here, 95% done. I found some stuff. I went down a rabbit hole. I'm going to push that out here in the next couple of days. I will have one on Tumani. I'm just waiting to see whether or not he wins. That's kind of where I'm at with that. And then kind of figure things out down the stretch for his write-up. And then I'll have a couple others. And then we'll be diving into prospects. Obviously, everybody's in Chicago right now for the Combine. Once everybody comes back from the Combine, I believe we're going to have 2 workouts a week that we'll be going to at the PF over the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, plus whatever secret ones they have that I'll always try to sneak around and find. But beyond that, a lot of content coming up. Sign up over at patreon.com/Jacked Ramsays. And again, if you're watching live right now or you're listening on the podcast, like, rate, review both. Whatever podcast platform you're listening on. I'm platform agnostic. I appreciate you no matter what, even if I don't like you. I do appreciate you. No, seriously, I will never, ever, ever, ever take for granted how much fun I get to have doing this and how much I love my job. It is awesome to get up and do this every day for a living. And thank you guys. I always want to make sure I take time to thank you, even when I'm mad at you. I'm mad because I care. I'm excited because I care. I call you idiots because I care. And I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do. Like, rate, review, subscribe here on YouTube. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Everyone out there, have a wonderful, wonderful night. Go enjoy some playoff basketball. It appears the Pacers might have the opportunity to put the Cavs away here pretty quick, less than a minute to go. I'll catch you guys here soon. Take care. Bye.